Hello, Mateys Thrive Nation. I've got a colleague, acupuncture physician, and I've been a doctor of Chinese medicine now for many, many years, 26 years as a physician. And I just love Chinese medicine. I love acupuncture, and it's looking at it from a different perspective and combining what I call functional medicine, holistic medicine, and Chinese medicine is a very powerful, powerful way to holistically treat patients and clients. So it's just a really, really warm welcome to have Dr. Cathy Goldstein on the show. And she's doing incredible work in our most and biggest organ, the skin. And so we're going to be discussing everything skin today. So a warm welcome to you, Dr. Cathy.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm actually honored to be on your show. You're right, I've spent decades of integrating acupuncture, neuroemotional medicine, because I'm big in the brain, and then that frequency science, that vibrational frequency that you get from, overall wellness. It's our vibration, right?
Absolutely. And everything carries a frequency from the information that we eat called food to the frequencies of light to sound to any senses, the environment, the earth. And so I think people are becoming more open to, and I don't like to only call it frequency medicine, but just different frequencies that come from different people and different parts of our life. But I do want to talk about the face. The face is crucially important in Chinese medicine as an assessment tool in terms of health, wellness, vitality, and energy. Our faces are talking to us. So just give us a big view. And I've looked at your socials and your website and your products. So firstly, just kudos to you. You are really, really trying to change the face of many people's faces. But that means changing their gut, changing their energy, changing their life, their zeal, their vitality. But talk to you about how important is the face as a picture of health.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. In Chinese medicine, it is a great diagnostic tool. The areas where a reflection of each of the meridians, between the eyes, a reflection of the liver, and the face has different areas that reflect how the meridians are performing, and ultimately to put that with the background on the functional medicine. I always feel like it comes down to the gut, right? And because that's really shows up on your face. And on a deeper level, what I'm also looking at is the trauma and the emotional stressors that show up on the face as well due to the muscles underneath the skin. And that also includes the fascia and the lymphatic system. And so with those, I really like to talk about, what happens when we have emotional experiences that we wear on our face and often get stuck on our face. And then, sometimes the choices that we make don't always work best for our brain function. We've got a loud background call, especially in the States, on how the beauty industry is telling us how we should look and what we should do to look younger. And that's kind of really against nature in my mind. I'm much more going with nature, where always works much better.
Yeah. Well, let's maybe start with the gut, because I think that's not too far of a reach for many people that have been listening for the last 5 years. And points like stomach 2, stomach 3, small intestine 18, these are just acupuncture points where there's a strong aggregation of nerve fibers. If you're listening out there and saying, oh my goodness, I'm either not a believer in acupuncture or I don't know. A lot of these nerve impulses, for want of a better sort of description, end up in the face, and they connect to internal systems and external systems. But let's talk about the gut with regards to your framework. How do you start addressing that with regards to just the integrity and the energy of our face?
Right. So when people talk about Chinese medicine and they talk about all the elements, they talk about the elements more in a circle. I actually more am in interested in the gut being in the center. And that's one of the older Taoist kind of concepts, where the gut is in the center, and all the other meridians support that. So I'm going to use like the earth element, which is stomach and the digestion, and how they all really interrelate. And I think that allopathic medicine, or actually I shouldn't say allopathic as much as natural medicine, functional medicine, have all really come down to how the gut performs is really how the brain performs, because there's 70% of our neurotransmitters in our gut. So I other than in my practice, how I'm managing the gut, which, gosh, there's so many different angles to that. I treat a lot of, allergies, but ultimately, all these things are really reduced when the gut is healthier. And from my perspective, I feel like the better we are on mental health, the better our gut's going to be, because I feel like our biggest toxin is emotional stressors.
Mm,
And that's really where they tend to land is, like people get stomach aches or tightness in their chest or their gut. And that's an absolute reflection of, how our stress is, or as I like to say, the issues are in the tissues. So they're
mm.
showing up in our body in a physical way and in a very real way as far as overall health, autoimmune to just even a knee pain.
Okay, so you're going more the emotional route in terms of how it affects this gut. You're not doing sort of a gut reset using sort of functional medicine or Chinese herbs or acupuncture. You're really looking at the emotions in your initial assessment, whether it's a client online or a patient. Is that sort of your first stepping point?
Yeah, so I do in my practice in a functional medicine way those are very important. But what I find is that if I'm not managing the emotional stressors that are sabotaging the body and keeping those toxins, the emotional toxins in the physiology, then I'm going to miss the boat, right? Because the issues are in the tissues, really what that means is that um, when we for example, one of the first things that we muscle test in our office is I'm okay being well. And if there's a non-congruency with that, we can treat a person till they're blue, till we're blue in the face, and it might look like the patient is sabotaging, but it's not intentional. It's because they've got some underlying belief system that they aren't to be well for
Mm,
whatever reason. Like let's just say they were, they've had asthma since childhood. Well, that's how they've been identified. That's how they get their attention, from parents from being that one of the maybe three kids that actually has asthma that has to be dealt with in a very different way. That input into our limbic brain are wiring to as a survival mode in, this is who I am and this is why I am this way. And this is, all of the unconscious things that happen as we get older, things
mm,
that may have served us as a child do not serve us now, but yet we still have that default mechanism. So if we're not really addressing the emotional component, I really feel like everything that we're doing is, could really be sabotaged.
mm. So do you do that yourself, or do you have counselors, or do you have psychologists who have a look at
Right.
self-talk and self-belief when you look at emotions?
Yeah. So the technique that we use in the office is called neuroemotional technique, and there's practitioners all over the world. And there, I think there's a very strong foundation for cognitive or traditional therapy, talk it out kind of therapy, cognitive specifically, because I feel like it can give you tools. However, talking it out doesn't necessarily eliminate that limbic loop that we keep getting hijacked in. And the reason why is because people think of emotions as something that we're consciously aware of, or we make decisions about, or that it comes from the heart. But the reality of it is that emotions are purely physiological, biochemical reactions. And as much as that might sound like, well, that's scientific and, what about, how I feel? Well, how I feel is all triggered by our biochemistry. So I like to use the analogy of, if you're a teenager and you're standing at your locker and your heartthrob is coming down the hallway and you can't wait to, have the opportunity to talk to him where your mouth might get dry, your heart might go pitter patter, your palms might get sweaty, right? That's the physiological reaction to an external information coming into your mammalian brain. But if I'm standing in a grocery store and I all of a sudden started having dry mouth, sweaty palms, and palpitations, I'd be thinking, oh my God, am I having an anxiety attack?
Mm,
So the relevance of our affect, of our expression is based on our limbic processing on what external information we're getting, and that determines our emotional expression.
Okay, so NET, neuro emotional techniques, because I mean we've done a lot of work. If you look at sort of EFT, emotional freedom
Yes,
techniques, and then we've
yes.
looked at EMDR as well in terms of that process. So this is different. Is it that the trauma or the belief or the emotion is locked up in a specific tissue? Does it that relate to Chinese medicine?
Yes.
Also, what is the framework with regards to this NET?
You love this question because, I feel like any work is good work, right?
Mm,
But the research that was done by the One Foundation, specifically measuring, how NET works, and there's clinical, I'm sorry, there's a PubMed research that shows functional MRIs actually changing the brain when it has experienced a trauma, and then 5 treatments later, the brain no longer gets fired up. So that's, specific research based on patients who had been diagnosed with cancer. So the difference is with NET is we're actually pulling together the basis of, psychology and why we tend to, replicate and try to reproduce the same experiences over and over and over again until we fix them, right? So there's some principles. And then the neurology, that functional neurology of the brain, and then the acupuncture theory in that issues are and specific emotions are stored in specific meridians, like you're familiar with, like liver might be anger, resentment, galled, emotionally repressed, depressed,
mhm.
right? Stubborn. So those are the emotions that are specific to the organs. So with this particular technique, what we're using is we're using muscle testing, like a laser, to determine where the congruency and non-congruency lies and be able to really hone into the original event. So talk it out therapy is all kind of like a perception of where we think something came from, but because of the concept of generalization, they might not look exactly the same,
Mm.
and that idea of, being traumatized by someone who had a white beard, it could turn into a white cat, and we wouldn't draw the conclusion between the two. Does
So
that?
are you doing muscle testing and then putting a needle in? Are you doing tapping? Are
No.
you injecting? What's
Yeah.
happening there?
So what we're doing is we're using the muscle testing to just test congruency and non-congruency on, for example, a statement like a congruency statement. I'm okay being well, right? And so the muscle testing is not a yes, no. It's either your nervous system is congruent with it, or when it's not congruent, it's weak. So it's just a fundamental, I either am moving towards it or away from that statement. And then we use the muscle testing to determine the acupuncture meridian that is stored in, so that we have an emotion that we can relate to it. So I'm okay being well. And then maybe the meridian is the water meridian or the water element or kidney. And perhaps with that, with the Chinese medicine, the emotions that relate to that are, fear, paralyzed will, impending doom. So maybe the emotion is fear. And so in that process, we can actually now, ask the patient on a cognitive level, how would you put together I'm okay being well or being well with fear? And so now they have kind of a framework to start working through the process, right? And so as we use the muscle testing to navigate down that road like a laser, we can now generalize it and check for the concept of the original event where that might have been conditioned into the nervous system or the brain, right? Or
Mm.
into that limbic brain. Then in the correction, we're actually using the acupuncture pulse points specific to the meridian that was indicated from the original muscle testing as they picture or get into the affect of that emotion of fear, as we found in the beginning. So now they're putting together the acupuncture meridian access point, the prefrontal cortex points with their hand over their head, and a picture of the original event in their brain to bring up that affect and that physiology for the correction. And then with
Wow.
the correction, after the correction, we can muscle test that to make sure that that is clear and make sure there's no other meridian access points that are related to that. So
Wow.
the key part is that prefrontal cortex and using those points to direct the information back to the limbic brain.
Hmm. Wow, that sounds like a really integrated approach. So that's your emotional framework that affects the gut, and obviously the gut affects the face. Let's look at sort of just your facial direct framework. You spoke about the lymphatic system. Obviously, emotions are carried in the face, and I think if there's a lot of channels that are incongruent, to use the word that you've used, it's going to show up in the face.
Right.
But tell us about the lymphatic system before we get into the topical agents and TruEnergy and what you've
Okay.
developed from a frequency perspective, because I think the lymphatic system is not addressed as much as it should be, and I think it's
Right.
crucially important.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think, between the fascia and the lymphatic system, we're really tied up in a lot of toxins that are really getting stored. And how I like to think of it is that the fascia, which is interconnected throughout the entire body, it carries the energy and the frequency and light energy, bio-photon energy for just cell-to-cell communication, inside world, outside communication. And the lymphatic system is a machine. It delivers nutrients to the different cells, which people didn't realize. Most people think of the lymphatic system as part of the immune system, where it can support the information that needs to be released in a biochemical way to support immune function. But it is way, way, way greater than that. It detoxes this system. It follows the vascular system. It actually is a much more complicated than the cardiovascular system because it has to really hit so many different areas of the body and follow along with the fascia. So if we are not detoxing first, then we are still carrying all the congestion that doesn't allow the cell to thrive. And that's the key part of that, and making sure that we're doing lymphatic drainage before we do anything at all.
So, what are your techniques that someone can do at home? Obviously, do you do acupuncture to help with the lymphatic system, vibrational therapies?
Yeah.
I don't know what else you use, if you use ozone or use injection parent
Mm,
therapy, like point injection therapy or hyperbaric. Or maybe you can
right.
just sort of list what you feel is best for the individual to do at home and then also within a clinic context.
Yes, absolutely. Because that you absolutely make a great distinction. How can we
Mm,
give people the tools that they can use at
mm,
home? And
mm.
then what do we do in our office that ramps it up?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to have a hyperbaric chamber in your house, even though that's great. We have one in our
Mm,
clinic. We use a lot of light frequency, laser frequency, biophoton, even crystal frequencies for what we call as an integration room to integrate your treatment and to help your body to start vibrating, because that's my whole thing is how do we get your cells to vibrate at a frequency of health? They want to be healthy. That's the innate ability and capability of the body, is it wants to be healthy. It knows that high frequency vibration of a healthy cell. It just sometimes needs to be reminded.
mm,
So it's the same, going with nature instead of against it. We're not forcing anything. We're going with nature to allow, right? So, but what we give our patients or what we make available to the general public is important as well, because detoxing is not a one time per week kind of thing. It's
yeah.
a daily thing. We need to be doing something to help detox.
Mm,
So we might use like binders and things like that help the patient to be able to take that home and use it. But my whole thing is how do I develop tools that can be imprinted with those vibrational frequencies that patients can use or people can use on a daily basis and
mm.
get the results that they want and need at home. And so for the face, I developed a tool that helps to.
Tell us
Okay.
exactly, because people are listening. This is, 5 5 years of podcast. This is, very specific. We haven't had someone like you. And, what I've realized more and more is what people resonate with, what people find comfortable, if we meet people where they're at, they're more likely to sustainably do it. So this is obviously techniques and products you developed, and that's crucial. And you've got a following, and people are using your products. So tell us, because it might, 48% of our listeners are in the US. They might just say, okay, I resonate with this. I resonate with
Yeah.
doing this at home. So tell us
Yeah.
exactly your protocol, whether it's the gua
Okay.
sha, or what you do
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So I have many tools in my toolbox that people can use and buy themselves.
Yeah.
And specifically, I have one for the face, one for the body, one for the eyes, as well as a eye mask and a full face mask.
Mm.
And they're all imprinted with frequencies that are very specific. So, for example, and let's talk about that, right? Because why would we do that? How do we do that, right? So let's start with like cell communication, right? Cell communication actually uses light, specifically bio-photon emission, right? It's our bio being, body or life, and photon being light. And so there are many studies in quantum biology that show that imprinting into a tool can actually help to hold that frequency and have specific
Mm.
frequencies that actually support that regulation, whether it's detoxification or cellular coherency. And and so by holding that tool on or doing a specific protocol on the body, it helps to retune those cells, like a piano, right? So if a
Mm.
string is off, the whole system is off. And those frequencies help to retune the skin or the cells and that body to that have that optimal frequency state. So that's the, basis of that. And why it's important is because our life is stressful in general. We have a lot of pollutants that we're exposed to, and we have a lot of challenges that make it necessary for us to do something that cares for ourselves in multiple ways. So,
Yeah. Okay, but let's talk about sort of any massage techniques or gua sha or any
yes.
tools that you've developed, because I think if we stick, and I want to follow on with the detox protocol, if the specific binders you take, whether you recommend infrared sauna, how important,
Yeah.
and I'm just giving you ideas here because we want to hear from you more than from me, but like how important it is for the face to sweat, because I see so many people and they just don't sweat anymore, especially the ladies,
Right.
by 9 o'clock in the morning, they've
That's
got
true.
196 toxins on their body, and you're just entrapping that
Yeah.
system and they just don't sweat anymore. So give us your sort of detox, and we'll talk about your technology, because I really believe in frequency, medicine and imprinting.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell us more.
Yeah. So, I actually do have a sauna at home, an infrared sauna. I don't think it's, too far of a reach for people to have a sauna in their house
Mm,
anymore,
mm,
because, and even the ones which do not detox your face, but the ones that you sit in, I
mm,
prefer, a full sauna that you can actually walk into, right?
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
So that actually, I have a sauna in my house. And so that if you can put that into your program, I am a big fan.
How
Um,
important is it for you to get into sauna to get the sweat, especially your face? And even if someone can't afford a sauna, how important is it for your face to sweat?
well, I think it's important for your face to sweat because it is part of your skin,
Yeah,
right? And it
well,
is
if you're
part of
not
your lymphatic
detoxing,
system.
yeah, exactly.
Right. Right. So, but even with the sweating, my concept really is it's about the tools. So on the face, in using a specific tool that's imprinted with the frequencies of repair and the having that cell retune to that
Mm,
perfect vibration, being able to physically do the lymphatic drainage is really important.
mm,
In my sauna, I actually use my body tool. It's a stone that I've imprinted with frequencies that actually repair the lymphatic system. So
okay.
it's not just about using like gua sha or brushing's, a lot of people think of brushing as helping the lymphatic system, but there's multiple layers to the lymphatic system.
Mm.
The superficial layer of the lymphatic system, brushing can help, but it does not get to the deeper layers. And that's the thing about why I imprint the tools, is because it's not enough to just physically move it. It's about giving those cells the information to perform as they're supposed to perform.
Okay, so
So
if
I
you,
usually,
sorry,
yeah.
if you're listening on audio, Dr. Kathy is holding up a black tool. So when we're talking about tools, and maybe you can just sort of explain that you've imprinted a frequency in that someone holds, and then
Right.
they apply that to their body in circles. You teach them what to do. We will put the links now to TruEnergy. I've got the website here because everything is here. I've got it stored truenergyskincare.com, but it's probably just truenergyskincare.com. So we'll put everything there, but maybe you can just sort of give a description now on the tool and what you've done and how to use it.
Okay. All right. So I do give a protocol. That was your first
Mm.
question. And I am selecting very specific frequencies and thousands of different frequencies.
Mhm.
So the frequencies are, that support the acupuncture meridians and acupuncture points, the
Mm.
neuroemotional work, that cellular, the quantum biology, making sure that I have every aspect of how the cell detoxes and how a cell repairs. And when you go into the upregulation, downregulation, there's a lot of frequencies that go into that.
Mm.
So with the tool, I usually, like I said, I like to use this in the sauna. I also use it after a shower, but it is my daily routine to help the lymphatic system not only detox but repair. And it is very specific protocol. We're opening lymphatic channels, the bundles, that area where the nodes all are, where it kind of all the lymphatic system dumps into before it carries it back up to the heart, so they can go through the circulation and we can detox. Sweating is one way to help that, but if we're just sweating and we're not repairing that, then, or not physically moving the lymphatic system, it's going to take us a lot longer to actually detox. So it's super beneficial to have the tools that help the physiology of the body, to help it to detox, and then getting in there and sweating, right? So so I give specific protocols on how to use that, opening the lymphatic system, going along the different acupuncture meridians, going towards the heart, always towards the heart. You don't want to go towards the toes or towards the fingers. That's very important. And then on the facial wand, it's also specifically lymphatic drainage. And a lot of people don't really think about going down when you're doing the face. Everybody who, is familiar with how you apply skincare, it's always up, 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 so that you
Mm.
don't drag the face down, right? But this is the thing, is that we're not getting the lymphatic drainage in our face because the muscles of the face are very different than the muscles of the body. We have pumping in our muscles of our body, like our calves and our thighs, that help to push the lymphatic system back up, kind of like the vascular system. We'd get pooling if we
Mm.
didn't have those muscles pumping, everything up. So the muscles of the face are very different. They're not really supporting drainage. So being able to actually get physical drainage in the face is important, but also what's important is to really understand that there is an enzyme called collagenase, and collagenase breaks down collagen. So when you're doing lymphatic drainage, and you talked about what can people do at home, even if you're just doing your fingers, to very, very lightly go down the face and support the face in being able to do that lymphatic drainage. I like to, with the tool, we usually do circles. With your hands, you can do those circles where the nodes are, where it's going to drain into. And then as you go work up the face, don't start at the top because it's congestion on top of congestion.
Mm.
Start at the base and move the lymphatics, and then work your way up, cooling it down afterwards. So that's a great tool that people can use at home that will help pull those toxins from your face.
Sure. And do they heat it up before to help with that? What can they use? Do they put hot compressors or use infrared panels? What is your view there?
Yeah, I mean, uh, because I don't I don't heat the wand up.
Mm,
I am doing the stone in the sauna where I'm already heated up, right? But with the face, really, if you think about, I mean, the tool is a device, but if you think about what the underlying uh, purpose of it is, it really is about retuning so that the body learns to do something on its own as well. So, and that's how I feel about, functional nutrition, functional skincare. It should give the body what it needs to help it to produce what it wants.
mm.
Right? So much like collagen, you can't put collagen on the surface of the skin and expect it to do anything. Collagen is generally a large molecule. The body doesn't really know what to do, trying to shove collagen in it. So what's important in it, for example, in the skincare is that it has the active ingredients that activate collagen production and can get down to those deeper layers.
And tell us about the frequency and the imprinting, because I think that's unique to your brand. I use a brand called S. It's 100% organic. It's got bacteria in, got a beautiful probiotic, sort of diverse supply. I go with my 21-year-old son. We play paddle or pickle, and they say, "Hey, is this your brother?" So I have looked after my gut. I've never missed a day's work here in the practice in 26 years. My skin is in pretty good condition, but I always want to find new ways, because now you've probably got it organic. Maybe you can talk about your products and even some of them on the website. So it's probably organic. You got none of the toxins. Let's talk about the phthalates and parabens and all that, because I mean, people sometimes might hear this for the first time. And
Yeah.
then you've got the imprinting, which is something very, very unique.
Right, right, right. So that is absolutely true as far as it's got to be clean. You don't want to put
Yeah,
chemicals on top of chemicals. That's the whole point, right?
exactly.
So, right. So the thing is too is that I actually am there. I'll tell you they are not organic. And
Mm,
there's a reason why they're not organic. It's because when you're talking about skincare, it needs to be absolutely clean. But organic is really, it just drives the cost up of the product.
yeah,
And
say
by
that
the
again.
time
Yeah.
yeah, right. And by the time you've extracted what you need, they're purified. So they're not organic. However, they're way beyond what we would call FDA all natural. FDA all
Mm,
natural is not enough. So I go way over that process and do like, eco certified and things that are actually clean.
okay.
And you're right. The main thing is in the amount of toxins that people put on their skin and in their body through, air and contact is it's really, really important to read your skincare. But there are also hidden areas as well. So you do want to make sure that like you said, no parabens, no phthalates, no synthetic fragrances and perfumes. And that actually is an area where 300 different chemicals can hide due to proprietary formulas. Same thing with even with parabens. Parabens have multiple names to them that you might not recognize. So same thing with dyes, mineral oils, petrochemicals. These are PEGs. PEGs, we have a ton of PEGs. And in the past, people were always thought, well, if it doesn't have those chemicals, it doesn't work. And that is not the case.
Hmm,
What's important, no matter how much you pay for a product, is that it has, of course, the all natural, but it's the active ingredient. And that's where people shortcut. You can say it has resveratrol in it, and if it's not at an active percentage or a percentage that actually performs the task that it's supposed to, then it's just a name.
yeah.
But there's no way to tell that from looking at a label. There's no way to say, well, is this an active or is this a support ingredient? So those are really important in just a fundamental level of, ingredients and reading. I also have a little talking about the frequency part of it. I have a little green bead or a little blue bead that I've imprinted with frequencies that go in every jar. So
Okay.
for
Wow.
example, yeah. So for example, the blue bead is and I use this with my blue mask. are imprinted with frequencies that help for the clusters of melanin under the skin, because a lot of things that treat the skin are treating the surface, and they're generally bleaching it, right? So people go, well, it worked, but then I got out in the sun and they reoccurred, or they reoccur after a while. And it's because most things are addressing the surface of the skin. It may take longer for the TruEnergy spot treatment to work, but it's because I'm dealing with the underlying issue, inflammation, sun damage that causes the clustering. And same thing with the emotional stress, so stressors as well. So I'm dealing with the underlying issue of the cell, so that when that cell comes to the surface and it has relearned the healthy vibration of a cell, when it comes to the surface, it's a beautiful cell like it's supposed to be. I mean, as we divulge our age here, is I'm 65. So, I've had the opportunity to practice what I preach, both in practice and with the skincare.
Mm.
So and my biggest thing is at 49, I had a real diversion from my practice. I was treating people, for years that were sick and autoimmune and all the things that we're talking about. And at 49, I caught myself in the mirror inadvertently. I went, whoa, what I am looking at does not match how I feel. So
Yeah.
it kind of had me shift to, what happens with this largest organ of the body.
Mm.
And that's where it kind of diverted to making sure that we're addressing those emotional toxins, physical toxins, what happens with the muscles of the face, which I actually find the most fascinating aspect of it, because I don't know about where you live, but where we live in the United States, the beauty industry is saying, injectables and freeze,
Yeah.
right? So the issue with that is that the muscles of the face, most people think that we use them to express our emotions, but it's actually part of a process that helps us understand our emotions. So we have mirror neurons, and those mirror neurons are, how as a child, we learn to mimic other people's facial expressions so that we can understand what an emotion is, right? So if you're having a rough day and you're telling me about some, major thing for you that's stressing you, I will use micro mirroring of your facial expressions that sends information back to my limbic brain, that then sends information to my prefrontal cortex, where I communicate. So I now understand how you feel, or I've interpreted how you feel. And a lot of people think that our expressions are just expressions as,
Yeah.
of our emotions. They're part of a whole much bigger system, especially with infants. Infants are all, they're all mirror neurons. So learning how to smile, learning how to laugh, all of those things help that little nervous system to develop emotional intelligence
Mm.
and how to really understand other people's emotions. And teens, it's really, really important. So if you're a mom and you have a teen, they're still relying on you to understand emotions based on the emotions in the muscle. The 79% of our nonverbal communication is our face. And the ability to read those is really important when you think about the stress that teens have and the anxiety that they have. They've actually, this is a really interesting study. They put teens in a fMRI, and they showed them photos and videos of people talking who were, injected with Botox and fillers, or even just Botox. And it actually fired up the brain as if it was experiencing trauma.
Wow.
Right. And the reason why is because they don't know how to respond. They don't know how to react because they can't understand it and they can't read it. And those little, those little neurons don't actually develop for girls till they're 21. And for boys, 25 is where they fully get developed. So it's really important through that whole process. And it's
Uh,
important for our communication with each other. That's how we connect, right?
Absolutely. A few areas I want to talk about. So you put a little ball in each there from a
Yes.
frequency perspective. So you cause that little ball to resonate at a certain frequency. You've got those frequencies, and then you put it in every single product.
Right. That's
Okay.
correct.
And that gets your
Yes.
product, that's a clean product, like you've mentioned. I've been on, it looks like there's, quite a few sort of natural oils and obviously your own IP there, but so it causes that to resonate at a certain frequency.
Correct. That's
Yeah.
correct. So, yes. So it optimizes the frequencies and it optimizes the communication with whatever tool that you're using, be it face or body.
Okay, brilliant. Okay. And then in terms of, looking at Botox and fillers, that's causing a disruption in the lymphatic system. That's
Mm,
causing a disruption. The muscles aren't moving themselves, obviously introducing a new toxin into that system. Tell us
yes.
about other dangers that people might not know about with regards to, because I get a lot of people come in, want to go the natural route and use Chinese medicine tools and that. But tell
Yeah.
us about those dangers, because people are going to be listening saying, I've done fillers, I'm still doing Botox. I
Hmm.
don't see there's
Hmm.
a problem with it.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. And uh so the primary part of it, like you said, is that it is you're adding a toxin into your body. And a lot of people think that it doesn't migrate, but we know that using a toxin on our skin migrates to hormone disruptors. So there's no way, just based on our cellular communication, that that information is not going deeper. It also, because of the lack of muscle movement, we're decreasing ACTH, we're decreasing the neural pathways to the brain because we require cellular or muscle movement to stimulate our communication with our brain. So it's decreasing the amount of neural pathways, information substances moving back and forth from our perception on our prefrontal cortex and our mammalian brain that does the processing, tells us whether we're in danger, tells us how to feel and how to respond based on its history and our history, right?
Mm.
How to respond, and then puts the information back to that frontal cortex to do logical decision making based on that, right? So we're decreasing that information, and as well as decreasing our connection with others. So if I'm talking to you and I have Botox, my face is not moving, I'm not able to make facial expressions, you don't know how to interpret me, and you feel like I might not care, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm not empathizing, I'm not expressing, I'm not using that 70% of non-verbal communication that tells us that we're connecting. It's the emotional
Yeah.
intelligence, right? So now you're disconnecting from me. And because I don't have the ability to really interpret, I'm disconnecting from you. And when 1 out of 3 people report that they feel lonely, this is not going to go in the right direction. It really creates isolation as well as, and well, actually, and this is interesting as well, is that there the psychiatry is using Botox for depression, for other mental illness. So if allopathic medicine is using Botox for mental health, that there's a connection. It's just that one is going against nature and
Yeah.
one is going with nature. And when you go against nature, there's always repercussions.
Mm.
You don't hear that long list of drug contraindications and issues because the drug doesn't do anything else but just do what it's supposed to do. This is really the same concept. The idea is that you can get the results that you're looking for and more if you're going with nature instead of against it. And like you were saying, there's plenty of people who have done Botox. It's almost hard to find someone who hasn't done Botox by the time they're,
Mm.
50 or 60. But it's never too late. It's never too late to to repair, to reverse, to regenerate, and to reconnect, with ourselves and others.
Mm.
So it's never too late. And that's my real message. I have people who come in and they go, well, I like my Botox. And it's like, okay, well, let's work with that. Why
Yeah.
don't, start with the TruEnergy facelift system. And I feel like what you're going to find is that you don't feel like you need to do Botox for a much longer period of time. And inevitably what happens is they don't end up reusing the Botox.
Okay, wow. And I don't know if you read a book called by Charles Duhigg called super communicators, but it would really speak into the space. Do you know it?
No, I don't. I'll
Okay.
definitely read that.
Yeah, check it because what you're saying is, I mean, there's lots of light bulbs going on in my mind because as you connect with someone and communicate, your brain waves start resonating at the same frequency. Now, if you can't mirror them or match them, and there's a lack of connection, then you're not going to be able to have that engagement that you need that is so healthy in terms of parts of social interaction and that. So, as you're saying that the face is crucially important, the gestures are crucially important. Otherwise, if you smile or you and they can't mirror that or match that, it's going to be, I think, a problem from connection perspective. So,
Agreed.
interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so the last part that I want to talk about is your face is looking incredible, and obviously you're walking the talk.
Yes.
You obviously not doing the Botox and the fillers. I mean, this is your industry. It's looking amazing. Maybe speak into your own facial protocol, what you do from when you wake up, because people are going to look and say, Dr. Cathy, you're 65, you're a doctor. It's not going to happen to me. I don't think it's possible. You've got
Mm.
money. I don't have money. So I think walk us through your daily facial protocol.
Yeah. I totally agree with all of those reasons why people
Mm,
think that they can't have what they want when they
mm,
truly can.
mm,
And ultimately my day, when I wake up, the first thing I do is I go into my kitchen and take binders. I do all my detoxing because my brain has been detoxing overnight. The lymphatic system of the brain, the lymphatic system, it mostly detoxes at night. I want to get some binders in right away on an empty stomach. So, and then
Which binders you take, Dr. Cathy?
I like folic acid. I like, like even just ash. I usually will do a combination with, maybe some burdock, some liver detox, things like that. And I switch it up. I always switch it up.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, so then from there, I get outside, right? So, and I do something that I really enjoy. So I take my dog to the beach and I go for a walk in the beach because how we start our day makes a
Mm,
huge difference in how our day goes. So if walking my dog and watching him do the zooms all over the beach
mm,
makes me laugh and smile, that's a great way to start the day on our physiology, right?
mm,
And then I'll come back and if it's a sauna day, I'll do a sauna. And I have the body stone in the sauna, so you do the lymphatic drainage on the body stone. If it's not, then I'll take a shower and still use the body stone to help my body do the physical detox and repair of the lymphatic system. And then after I get out of the shower, I am going to do my facelift system, and it is 7 minutes a day. After the first 30 days, you can either continue that or you can do it more preventatively. At this point, I really use it more like, do I have an event? Do I, if I have multiple interviews, things like that, I'll generally do my facelift system several days in advance and just keep doing that. I actually have interviews almost every week, so I tend to do the protocol at least a couple of times a week. So that is part of the protocol that takes me 7 minutes, and I'm using my products so that I'm getting the nutrients in my skin that it needs. It has the oleosome technology that helps deliver those nutrients deeper into the cell. It's a seed process that holds the nutrients. So I don't use any other skincare. And then I can begin my day. And a lot of times my day begins with a lot of electronics. So at the end of the day, right? So at the end of the day, I'm making sure that I detox from my electronics, maybe go back outside, do some, grounding on the
yeah.
beach and things like that.
Okay, so at night, are you using the what you call the facelift product again? So how many times a day are you?
No. Yeah,
Okay.
one time per day on the facelift, but I am using my product. I'm making sure that I'm using an exfoliant that takes the dead skin cell barrier down so that we can get product penetration. That's key. That's absolutely key. It actually, I use a jojoba bead, which is an ester, so it's perfectly round and perfectly smooth because I don't want to use salt or anything abrasive because micro scratches creates micro scarring, and that is not good for elastin. So I'll do my full protocol with my nighttime and my night serum, or the spot treatment at night, so that I'm giving those nutrients to my skin while I sleep. I always use my white eye mask because it helps me to go into parasympathetic really quickly in the evening, and that actually is super key for me for sleeping. Sometimes with a spot treatment, I'll do a full face mask, and it creates these beautiful pressure points on the meridians. That is also really great for parasympathetic, stress to de-stress, the sympathetic to parasympathetic, as well as it has medicinal effect to it as well.
So just to recap, facelift in the morning for 7 minutes, different products. Then at night, you're doing exactly what? Using a nighttime cream or
Yes, so cleanser. If it's a scrub day, this is only 2 to 3 times per week.
okay.
I'll use the scrub. The cleanser is a day and night, and that has these beautiful fruit enzymes in it that help to, on a continual basis, break down that dead skin cell barrier because it's an acid, but it's a fruit acid, so it's gentle. And then I'm using either my oil or my serum, or this, the oil in the serum, to really help for that deep hydration and repair. And then my overnight cream that helps for repairing as I sleep. It's the one with the antioxidants to it, the resveratrol, things like that that help to detox as well. My daytime cream, I don't use sunscreen. I use my daytime cream because it has the natural Hawaiian oils, probiotics. You were talking about the probiotics. Just like your gut needs them, your skin needs them as well.
Yeah.
Super important.
Okay, so that's the process. Now, where can people get these products? Tell us just all your different links.
Yeah, so the TruEnergySkincare.com, which is True TRU Energy ENERGY skincare.com, is the main website that you can find the shop page on that. You'll find if you do TrueEnergySkincare.com/you, there's information about the facelift protocol and the body sculpting protocol on that page as well.
Brilliant. Okay, and social media channels that people can sort of listen are there any that they can connect to?
Yeah, all of them are TrueEnergySkincare.com. So it's super easy, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, um, all of the other ones.
Okay.
Actually, there's probably not all of the other ones. I'm pretty simple when it comes to staying on the social media.
Well, and well done to you. 65 years old, developed your own range, moved from there, going on social media, looking incredible, really, really healthy lifestyle. So I can only salute you. But maybe just give
Thank
a
you.
message of hope for people because I think people out there say, you can't do this naturally. And, we're in an area in Johannesburg, high LSM, and guys are still using a lot of these toxic products and they don't understand the damage. We've never just seen a toxicity like ever before. And if you're listening out there, 80,000 new chemicals in the last 80 years, it's causing
Mm,
significant problems. So maybe give a message of hope because you're 65 and you've done it the natural way.
yeah, yeah, 100%. So, um, this is the thing that's kind of really the bottom line is that we create self-care for our body, for our entire body. If you're the person who exercises, wants to eat right, really conscious about health and the things that are healthy for you, and integrating those in your life, nothing happens in an instant. It's all a process, and it's all a process of, learning, if you will. So it's really the self-care is about working with the body's energy systems. And if we're feeling stuck, if we're feeling inflamed, if we feel disconnected, and we're really feeling like we're missing the mark on that. Really going back to nature and using quantum biology, energy medicine, energy, systems can really help us to reconnect and restore that flow. So our face is an extension of our nervous system. Our expressions are important for mirroring others and processing information. And what I really feel like the message is for what we can create is that especially women, but we're here to hold each other up, right? And that's what we should do is hold each other up and support. And social media has a tendency to break that down. And people will pick on each other because it's not face to face. My message is that always keep in mind that our job is to hold each other up and to support each other, that it's never too late to make different decisions or to step into that. I'm not wanting to follow the tradition of the beauty industry and feel like I have to look a certain way. We, as we age, we offer so much. We offer so much in our resilience, in our ability to navigate. We are at the height of our game as we get into our 60s, even where these women are CEOs and they're directors and they're managers and they're moms that are doing amazing jobs, that it is really important for us to feel like we can own that naturally and not feel shame or not feel like we have to hide. And that's a message that takes more than me. It's a message that needs to go out from everybody's mouth and from everybody's energy field, that who we are is enough. I want women to look in the mirror first thing in the morning, love what they see, go out into the world with that energy of confidence and feel and that they deserve, and go out into the world with that energy.
Beautiful. Well done to you. Just declare favor and blessing over you, Dr. Cathy, that you may just
Oh,
rise up in your calling. It's courageous, and you're giving people another way, another option, really, to ensure that they treat their skin, their gut, their lives naturally, and to treat it so that they don't cause damage. Because I think this is an area where a lot of people are causing unknown damage to their bodies. Thank you so much for your time.
thank you.